Snyder's Rebel Moon has now premiered on Netflix, and the reviews are not good. Hi, this is Tia from Geek Vibes Nation. I'm your content manager, and I am not here to review Rebel Moon as I have not actually seen it yet, but just more so here to talk about the reviews that Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, is getting. Um, just right off the bat, obviously, Zack Snyder is a bit of a polarizing director. Some people love him, some people dislike him. Here at GVN, we have people who are fans of his, but also people who are not fans of his, like myself. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of Zack Snyder's vision for DC or anything like that, but I always give people's movies a chance because I always say that if you're going to criticize something, you should at least give it a chance first. I watched Zack Snyder's 4 hour Snyder cut when it came out, still didn't sway how I felt about the Justice League movie. But anyway, just want to throw that out there just to let everyone know where I'm coming from. But yeah, Rebel Moon has come out. It's 2 hours and 14 minutes, which is pretty good for a Zack Snyder film, although I've been hearing rumors that apparently there's a director's cut of that, which, Zach, let's why? Why? Why are we already doing this again? Or if it's Netflix or something, let's not try and garner the whole director's cut debacle because people almost seem to forget that cutting and splicing movies is a thing and that's how you get movies. But anyway, yeah, let's continue. It's not about that. Right now, Rebel Moon has a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 32% on Metacritic, and a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Things are looking a little better on Rotten Tomatoes for the audience score. It has a 73% audience score as opposed to the 23% for critics, which is to be expected. Again, Zack Snyder has a huge fan base. That is why we even have something called the Snyder Cut in the first place, is because the fans. So, and that's the thing, if you are a fan of Zack Snyder and his style of movie making, then that is great. I think that everyone should be able to watch what they want, even if some people disagree with it. Rebel Moon has been kind of dubbed Zack Snyder's version of Star Wars. The big thing out there is apparently Zack Snyder did pitch a Star Wars movie to Disney and they rejected it. So he made his own version. And again, I haven't seen the movie, but from the trailers and other people's reviews, it seems pretty on the nose that there is much of a Star Wars backbone to Rebel Moon, which, let's be honest, Star Wars in general was inspired by a lot of things. Everything in fantasy and sci-fi is going to mimic other things, so that's not even like that big of a deal, even though it's very, very blatant. But I want to read some of these reviews, some of the good reviews, some of the bad reviews. Obviously, there seems to be a lot of bad reviews when it comes to the critics. Let's start honestly with Rotten Tomatoes. The top one right here on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm not really going to be using people's names just because I feel like I don't want to call anyone out specifically, especially again, we're talking about Zack Snyder. People can get a little hostile when it comes to these things. But the top one that I find on Rotten Tomatoes, if you have if you have to choose one film where the protagonists visit a cantina full of shady aliens and hire a scoundrel pilot to ferry them across the galaxy in a rickety smuggling vessel, Star Wars handles this material much better more than 45 years ago. And that got a 3 out of 10. And again, you're going to get the comparisons to Star Wars a lot, but if that's the backbones of it, like, yeah, that sounds very much like Star Wars. The next one is excuses will be made that it's the first of a two-parter, but you have to establish some connection to the story or the people populating it to ensure viewers will want to come back. And unfortunately, Rebel Moon doesn't come close to achieving that. Another Zack Snyder movie that deals with the same old issues, quality production values with scatterbrained, incoherent storytelling. I feel like a broken record. Now, there was an actual positive review in Rotten Tomatoes under the critics. Someone said an entertaining filtering of science fiction and general storytelling tropes through the lens of creator-director Zack Snyder. You know, people kind of obviously talked about all of the slow-mos, which is a thing. Zack Snyder loves his slow-mos, and apparently this was all of it. Hugely said someone says a hugely expensive but uninspired Star Wars knockoff with some thrilling action sequences and some truly ugly moments that taint the entire thing. Someone did say Rebel Moon Part 1 is a solid sci-fi fantasy with Zack Snyder's artistic flair. It's familiar with its homages while fresh in its visual language, while a strong start to the universe. An untethered director's cut might just be the true prize. And this is what I'm saying. We're already starting the whole thing for a director's cut. And it's a little exhausting, honestly. Last one I really kind of want to talk about with Rotten Tomatoes, and I will say her name, Grace Randolph, just because she's so well known and she's a big Zack Snyder fan, as everyone knows. She, of course, gives it a good review, saying, "More Zack Snyder's Dune than Star Wars. The filmmaker's opus isn't likely to win over new fans, but is a treat for those who appreciate his work. Butella, Fisher, and Bay are the real standouts. I do wish the two-part movie craze would end." Let's see. Then we also have, I was looking at the Hollywood Reporter. So in the Hollywood Reporter, right, there's an article where they kind of talk about a bunch of different reviews. But apparently, chief film critic David Rooney, who actually writes for the Hollywood Reporter, an insert from his review is, quote, "This is a derivative crazy quilt endeavor loaded with enough plot to plug up a black hole, but only the most feebly drawn characters to do the work." Now, I have heard in a lot of reviews the word derivative thrown around, and it's almost as if everyone's kind of copying that from each other. That's not to say that people are purposely making hit pieces on Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon. There are a lot of people out there who think that people will just talk shit about Zack Snyder for the sake of talking shit about Zack Snyder. Um, but I do think that people probably sat there and said, how do I really describe how I feel about this? And then they read other people's reviews, saw the word derivative thrown out everywhere and said, that's a good way to do it. But yeah, so The Guardian apparently gave it 1 out of 5 stars and deemed it an ugly, unforgivably dull, and self-serious mess. The Independent said a mess of imagery, some of it attempting to shock, congregated largely around the idea of what might look good in a trailer. I actually have seen that as well. People were talking about how a lot of the shots in this movie were probably just done just to look good in a trailer, which, Los Angeles Times says Rebel Moon is too invested in table setting to fully be enjoyed on its own, at times feeling more like a studio presentation deck than a piece of organic storytelling. Yeah, that is harsh, guys. That is very, very harsh. At UK's Total Film, though, said fans of Snyder's heightened brand of stern, muscular filmmaking won't be left wanting. And while the performances rarely extend beyond two-dimensional archetype, they're still fun to be had with Charlie Hunnam's I've never even heard of this word before, insouciant turn as a wily pilot of the Han Solo school. What does insouciant mean? Let's look this up. Showing a casual lack of concern, indifferent. Okay, okay, I see that. I see that. Apparently, again, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the director's cut is close to an hour of extra content. This is Zack Snyder saying it. The director's cut is close to an hour of extra content, so I think it's a legitimate extended universe version. You really get to see a lot. It's just more painted in all the way. I don't. Why can't we just get this out? What was that one movie? The Irishman was nearly 3 hours long. Like, you're telling me that Netflix wouldn't have allowed you to put an extra hour onto your Rebel Moon? I mean, it's part one already. They're invested in more. And Netflix did the Dawn of the Dead, or no, sorry, Army of the Dead from Zack Snyder. I mean, couldn't you just put it all in there instead of and that's the thing, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but Zack Snyder has this habit of, he puts the movie out, people don't really like it, and he goes, oh well, you just didn't see the whole movie, guys. It's much better in my cut. And it's like, it's kind of like video games. Don't put it out and say, oh, we're going to put updates to it, make it better. Just make it better, guys. But I was looking also on Google, and it seems like there's some really good audience reviews there. Someone said, Oh yeah, Rebel Moon is a stunning sci-fi epic that delivers on every level. Zack Snyder has crafted a visually spectacular and emotionally engaging story that takes us to a galaxy far, far away, but also feels very relevant and relatable. So that's one. People talking about they had the privilege of attending the Los Angeles premiere of Rebel Moon, and they loved it. It was great. Someone says the movie's fantastic. Someone says they enjoyed the movie. It's not perfect by any means, but it met all of their expectations. Basically, if Star Wars invaded Middle Earth and the story was told by a sci-fi nerd who was really into Roman history and World War II. That definitely sounds like Zack Snyder. If you watch any of his movies, he absolutely loves this whole, Roman Empire, God versus man sort of thing. Definitely him. Uh, Someone said they aren't normally into space type of movies, but he admires Zack Snyder. So, I mean, if you go to Google and type in just, Rebel Moon, people love it. And I think that's where you get the 73% of people actually really liking this movie as opposed to the 23% critics. Now, some people will say the critics just are, they're movie critics. They're being maybe a little too overly critical. And I certainly do think that that is a criticism for movie critics that is well deserved. I think that a lot of movie critics they break down movies too much instead of just sitting back and going, it's entertaining. And I certainly like to do that when I'm reviewing movies. I'm not going to sit there and review it like a snob or anything. Is it entertaining? Did it have flaws? Yes. But did I enjoy it? Is it a good movie? Did I hate it? No. Okay. Then that's it. And I haven't seen Rebel Moon yet, so I'm not going to make too many accusations about it. Just wanted to come here and kind of go through the reviews really quick, ask you guys if you've seen it yet. I mean, it's on Netflix. Everyone can watch it now. And this is the start of an actual franchise. So Netflix is probably going to be really happy to have this. They had a lot of success with Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. And if you're a streaming service like Netflix, who has gotten a lot of flack over the years with increasing their prices, canceling a lot of stuff, you probably are frothing at the mouth at having basically your version of Star Wars on your streaming service. So if I were Netflix, I would definitely hold on to Zack Snyder with two hands because he's definitely going to be bringing in a lot of fans to your streaming service who might have left in the previous years just because of everything I mentioned before. But anyway, have you guys watched Rebel Moon? If so, what are your thoughts? Let me know down below. If you are not subscribed, please do so. Again, there are people here who are huge Zack Snyder fans. There are people here who aren't Zack Snyder fans, but we always try to be fair and give our fair criticisms when they're due. So please give this a like if you liked it. And again, if you disagree with me, I don't feel like I said a lot to disagree with just because I was just reading other people's reviews, but let me know. And until next time, guys, we will see you later. Bye.